Hello, welcome back folks. Today we're going to be making this basic whole wheat sandwich bread loaf. Now I don't claim to be a great baker, though I have been doing a lot more baking the past couple of years, and one of the things that I've been making consistently, just about every week, sometimes even a couple of times a week, is this sandwich bread. It's light, springy, some added milk and butter so it has a nice soft crumb, and it also has a bit of a sturdier crust than store-bought loaves. It's great for sandwiches or in the toaster with breakfast, and it's got a blend of whole wheat and white flours, so it's a little bit healthy as well. Towards the end of the video, I'm going to break down the ingredients costs for this bread, and we'll do a little comparison with a few comparable loaves that I could have bought from the supermarket, and we'll see how ours stacks up cost-wise. I'll start by weighing out all the ingredients. I find that measuring ingredients by weight is far more accurate than using cups and tablespoons for baking. And a little kitchen scale like this is only a few dollars. First thing up is the yeast. This is 8 grams of active dry yeast, and that goes in the bowl of a stand mixer. Then we'll measure out 110 grams of milk. Adding milk to the dough does a few things. It enriches the dough, softening the crumb, enhancing the flavor, and it improves the browning on the crust, I find. That's followed by 135 grams of warm water, then 15 grams of white sugar, and 55 grams of unsalted butter that I'll soften or even melt completely in the microwave for a few seconds. And then comes the flour. First in, I'm going to use a whole wheat flour. I'm using about 12.5% whole wheat flour by weight compared to the all-purpose white flour. So that measures out in this case to 45 grams. Then we'll add in the regular all-purpose white flour, bringing the total weight of the combined flours up to 360 grams. Then we'll add in the melted butter that we measured out earlier. The butter acts in a similar way to the milk in this recipe. It helps to enrich the dough, gives it a more tender crust, and actually serves to improve the shelf life a little bit, keeping it fresher for a day or two longer. Then the final ingredient to go in here is some salt, 8 grams. Now I fitted the mixer with the dough hook, and I'm just going to start out on the lowest speed for about a minute to get everything combined and not shoot flour everywhere. Now if you don't have a stand mixer like this, you could definitely make this bread by hand kneading it. I would use a wooden spoon or a Danish whisk to mix all the ingredients here and then turn that out onto the countertop and knead for a good 10 minutes. Now once everything is combined, we can increase the speed. And you want this going fairly fast so that the dough is sort of slapping around in the bowl a little bit, which you can hear is happening right now. And then also take note of this little bit of dough that's sort of stuck to the bottom of the bowl here. We'll call it the foot. You'll see this foot here if the dough is undermixed or under-kneaded. So you can see that it still has the foot here, and you need to keep mixing this. All right, now a few minutes later here, you can see that there's less foot now, which means we're getting closer. The dough's coming together. This has been about 4 to 5 minutes of kneading at this speed now. And your mixer will definitely jump around on the counter when you're mixing dough like this. It's fine for the mixer to do this. You do have to kind of keep an eye on it. It can move itself across the counter. So, okay, now we've been about 8 minutes here at this speed. And you can see now the dough is not sticking to the bottom anymore. It's tightened up around the dough hook. This is done and ready to proof. So we'll cover this up with some plastic wrap, and I'll put it in a warm place for a good 2 hours. I generally put mine in the oven with the heat turned off, but with the oven light turned on. That sort of creates a pretty nice warm environment for the dough to rise, but you could just leave it on your countertop as well, and that would be fine. All right, now a couple of hours have passed and we're ready to get the dough shaped and into the pan for the second rise. And you can see that it's risen up here nicely. So I'll lightly grease the loaf pan here with some cooking oil spray just to help the bread come out easily. And then a dusting of flour on the countertop. And then I just scrape the dough out onto the work surface. They do make a nice silicone tool for scraping out a bowl like this, but I don't have one, so I'll just use my fingers. It seems to work fine. And then I want to shape this into a rough rectangle. You can do this just with your hands and stretching it out and pressing it down with your fingertips. I do like to kind of roll this gently with a rolling pin though. I find it helps to get a more even shape and thickness all over. But you could definitely just press this out by hand and it would be fine. And then starting at the end closest to me, I'll roll this up nice and tightly but without pressing it down too much. It's sort of a funny thing with bread doughs and risen doughs. You kind of have to be gentle with them, but also firm so that it'll do what you want. It's something that you can gain a feel for the more you work with bread dough. Then I'll just recover this loosely with the plastic wrap. I usually put the oven on to 375 to preheat, and at the same time I'll place this loaf pan on the stovetop where it's nice and warm so it can do its second rise. And I'll let it rise until it's at least 1 centimeter or 1/2 inch above the rim of the pan. All right, look at this beauty now. Nicely risen up, ready to bake. You could just pop this in as it is. You could sprinkle some sesame seeds on the top or poppy seeds, whatever you liked. I like to add a couple of little score marks on the top, mostly for decorative purposes. You definitely don't need to do this. All right, and then that went into the oven for 27 or 28 minutes. I usually rotate it around after 15 minutes, just because my oven temperature isn't super consistent throughout. Now, once it's cooked, I like to get it out of the loaf pan as soon as I can while it's still hot. I find that if it cools in the pan, it makes the bottom of the bread a little bit soggy or it changes the texture a little bit. So I like to get this out as quickly as I can and put it on a rack to cool. And you can see how soft this bread is, but at the same time, it's very springy and has some body to it, some bite to it. And then I'll generally slice up the whole loaf and store it in a bread bag. It just makes it easier for the rest of the family to grab bread when they want it without having to cut it for themselves. So that's it, folks, the weekly sandwich bread recipe. Let's take a look at how much that cost and compare that to a few store-bought options. So by far our largest cost here was the butter. You could save a little bit of money by swapping out butter for a neutral oil of some sort, but I think the butter has better flavor and is worth a few cents more here. Beyond that, the 2 flours combined were the next largest cost, followed by the milk. So our total cost for a whole loaf of bread here worked out to $1.28. Let's see how that compares. Here are a few whole wheat bread loaf offerings from my local store. Now, because each loaf is a different weight, I converted the costs to a per 100 gram cost so we can accurately compare them. So our loaf ended up being about 550 grams when baked. So that works out to 23 cents per 100 grams. Next up, we have this Dempster's loaf at 51 cents per 100 grams, followed by this Villaggio brand at 68 cents per 100 grams, and then a small brand, more organic loaf here at $1.27 per 100 grams, more than double the cost of the next highest one. And finally, this grocery store brand, which works out to 69 cents per 100 grams. So we can see that our loaf ended up being less than half the cost of the next lowest priced one, and 1/5 the cost of the priciest. Pretty good savings, labor costs aside. Now, in terms of that labor, the prep time for the ingredients was about 15 minutes. Proofing time for the 2 proofing sessions were together about 150 minutes, including the shaping of the dough. And then the baking time of about 28 minutes. So this really isn't a fast process. You could definitely go to the grocery store and buy a loaf of bread faster than you can make it. But if you plan it out, it's not a lot of active work. It's mostly resting time and having the time for the proofing to happen. But most of the time is spent just waiting for the dough rather than actively cooking. And so that's it, folks. Nothing smells quite like a fresh loaf of bread baking in your house. So if you haven't tried making bread at home, this one's pretty easy to do. It's a great way to practice if you start making it regularly. Now, if you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, then please do hit the like button. And as this is a brand new channel, I'd very much appreciate you subscribing so that I can keep bringing you more videos. Thanks, we'll talk soon.